My sweet confidants, happy Mental Health Month. October is all about mental health, which is why I will scream this from the rooftops that therapy should be accessible and affordable, which is why I love BetterHelp. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed. It's like, a dating app. You just swipe left and right and find someone that matches for you. I freaking love my therapist and other licensed professional counselors on BetterHelp specialize in things like depression, stress, anger, relationships, sleeping, trauma, anger, family conflicts, LGBT matters, grief, self-esteem. And my therapist, she even does like really witchy astrology shit that I love. I mean, I cannot scream it loud enough, y'all. You need to be using BetterHelp because I do this all from the comfort of my home. I wrap myself up in a safe cocoon blanket nest and I do my therapy exactly how I need it. And I want you, my sweet confidants, to start living a happier life today. So as a listener, you're going to get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/CI. I want you to join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/CI. Because everyone should be in therapy. I always say that. In fact, so many people have been using BetterHelp that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. So don't worry, we got you, baby. Use BetterHelp. Hello, sweet confidants. I am so excited. So excited for this episode. More so than normal episodes. And that's not to knock other episodes. I'm just really jazzed about this episode for many reasons. One, we're in the midst of Mental Health Month, baby. Welcome October, spooky season, witchy season, and mental health season. Number two, this episode deals with that intersection of what mental health role plays when we are dealing with a subject that is so close to me and I know so close to you, dear confidants, because we've got a lot of spoonies in the audience. Chronic pain. And number three, we're dealing with it in a modality of something I've been talking a lot about lately, but again, don't feel like I know enough about. That is the whole point of this podcast, is it's a podcast where we're absolutely sure we don't know everything. So I brought someone here who does know a lot more on the subject matter. We are talking about psilocybin and chronic pain, and I am so excited to welcome the founder of the Eleusinia Retreat down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, my friend, Jessica. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for doing this.
I'm super excited to be here.
Okay, I know you're not going to like this, so I'm going to get it out of the way. There's been a hit TV show on Hulu called 9 Perfect Strangers about Nicole Kidman taking a bunch of rich people to the woods to dose them on a bunch of shit, and it solves all their problems. And then I was like, I wonder if this exists for chronic pain. And it's not how I found your site, but I eventually found my way to your retreat, and I got to ask, what do you think about that show as a real life Masha?
I started watching it and I had to rage quit. I think I made it to the part where the lady passed out into her oatmeal, and that was it for me.
Yep.
Yeah, that was it. I was done.
It's entertainment, right? Yeah. It is not true to.
I was not entertained. Maybe I'm uptight. I don't know. Like, I am the most uptight jungle guru that you've ever met.
Well, you're living the real life version of it. So I imagine to see this like parodied horror, like thriller version of it was probably not ideal.
No, it was not ideal. It's also, I mean, the imagery was beautiful. There's some things that they got perfectly right. I got some like great ideas. I love the singing bowls. The architecture was beautiful.
Yeah.
I really liked it. But yeah, there's some points like the idea of dosing somebody with a substance without their knowledge was completely off. Right. Some of the scenes of the way they showed what the actual effects of the substance looked, what it looked like was completely off. It was a strange juxtaposition of being both a fan and violently not a fan.
Right. Yeah. And I think I like forgot about the dosing aspect of it once it was more character and story driven. And then I kept having to come back to like, oh wait, this is illegal, like what she's doing and like locking
Highly
people in
unethical.
rooms. Highly unethical, giving it a bad name, but and this is me being devil's advocate. I'm glad we're talking about the idea of plant medicine for alternative functionalities, specifically your specialty within chronic pain. So I'd love to hear like the trash everything you've heard about Nine Perfect Strangers and give me like what you do and what the retreat is.
Well, that show was really focused on the idea of like mental health, people fixing ideas of things going wrong in their life. I remember my first knee-jerk reaction was, oh, there's something up with those smoothies.
Oh yeah,
you can't share them. You can't share them.
Yeah.
They're formulated specifically for you. Don't share them. They're very pretty. They look delicious, right?
Oh yeah, I was drinking a smoothie every time I watched it. I was like, I got it. Yeah.
Well, and then later when it was revealed there was something in the smoothies, there was like, oh wow, when we dose with psilocybin, we actually fast for some time before taking in the psilocybin, because when you take it with food, it does slow absorption and could actually contribute to feelings of nausea. So there's like, oh, total rookie move. I wouldn't do that at all. If you want someone to be comfortable, no food.
Yeah. So they didn't get some of the more specific. It seems like they could have used a consultant perhaps on that show to.
But there are some things they got so right.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe some of the writers had experienced it personally. I wonder.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, the whole format of our retreat is not really based on having an intense psychedelic experience, but like the purpose of like what that retreat is based on. Like it's more of, we do a training retreat so that someone can learn how to use these substances for themselves. So we have a retreat where someone learns how to meditate through an intense psychedelic experience, and then they also learn how to grow mushrooms for themselves. And it's all a training retreat so they can learn to incorporate this into their pain management, basically back at home. Right. So the whole idea of being dosed without your knowledge and all that, it doesn't really fit into that.
The locking people in the rooms thing is where I was like, oh, fuck no. Like, I'm claustrophobic. I'm a control freak, and you're going to lock me in? Or absolutely not. And are there real parts of what that experience looks like in terms of like staff? Like, do you have people that work at the retreat that do certain jobs and facilitate certain parts of the psychedelic experience?
Yes. Yes, we do. And nobody is wandering around alone, unsupervised. Right. Like in that show. That's one part that just gave me a large amounts of anxiety.
Too many cliffs and waterfalls. I was like, what?
Yeah, too many cliffs and waterfalls, which looked like a lot of fun, just not under the influence.
No.
And yeah. So in general, under the types of doses that we use, people are not necessarily ambulatory. They're not walking around in general. And they're supervised on the way, on like little bathroom breaks. They're walked around, and they're not like just wandering around blowing bubbles. That part looked a little bit fun.
It did look a little, I was like, okay, that's interesting.
Wait, before I out myself, my husband did watch the whole show, and I may have popped in and like looked a few minutes at a time, rage quit, walk away, back and forth. It was,
that I have to imagine that's like watching somebody try and like portray a version of your like a autobiography or something, like on TV, where you're just like, it's nothing. I did not agree to have this information out into the world in this capacity. But I mean, if you go to the Eleusinia Retreat website, you see this gorgeous house on like a gorgeous property with super cozy looking beds and like group rooms, and there's a pool, and it looks very fancy, I'll say, and you're going for an experience that is dealing with subject matter that is like very not fancy. Like it's very awful for so many people to make the experience be cozy and comfortable and feel safe. I have to imagine is like a big part of getting anyone to even be interested in coming to a retreat like this.
Yeah, I would say the experience itself gets about as gritty as the individual's situation, because we have visitors that come for different reasons, whether they're looking for like just to expand their meditation practice, which that's not necessarily on the gritty side. And then we also have visitors that are dealing with some of the most painful conditions that that a human being can experience. And that does get quite gritty.
Yeah, intense. And spoiler alert, you and I had talked prior to recording this episode because I was actually super interested in hearing about the retreat just for myself. With, the audience knows all of the stuff that I deal with and live with. And I've kind of told you already that like I feel like I've been through all of what Western traditional medicine has to offer. I'm signed up for every experimental treatment. I've been to all of the best in the country. And yet here I am still on my own, having to do my own research about like places I can go in the jungle to do mushrooms, to try and find a new sort of breakthrough in my pain experience. Do you find that the reason why you created this retreat was because you found similar experience of just people are kind of over the traditional stuff?
Well, I created it really because it's what I created the retreat just because when I had a similar experience, it's what I felt like I needed for myself. I developed a condition called hemicrania continua. It's a side locked headache, constant unremitting headache. So it's on the right side of my head, and it pretty much just derailed my life at one point. And it belongs to a family of headaches that is relatively known to respond to psilocybin. There's another type of headache called cluster headaches that does
we know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a doozy, right?
Yeah.
And cluster headaches do respond pretty well to psilocybin. And I had this idea that, well, maybe because they have other things in common, maybe I should try psilocybin and see if it works. And when I went looking to see, because I was in my late 30s and I thought I didn't have friendships or contacts really that, I want to try some mushrooms. Let's do it.
How do I get this?
Yeah. I didn't have those kinds of relationships at that point. And so I looked into retreats, and it was just a lot of metaphysical hippie stuff that I felt that just wasn't going to work out for me. I felt like it just didn't make me comfortable.
A lot of green juice and white people.
A lot of green juice and white people. And I felt like the first time that one of those hippies was going to just say, if I was going to be puking and they were going to tell me, okay, just puke out all that bad energy, I was going to body slam somebody, because that was just my personality. That was.
And you're a girl of like science, what I've learned from these conversations we've had.
I am a skeptic, an aggressive skeptic. And I was going to get aggressively skeptic all over those hippies and those retreats. and it was not going to be pretty.
Yeah. So you're like, I can't do this bullshit.
Could not do this. I was
gotta
not
make
going
my
to do
own.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I had to do it on my own first to see if it was going to work. And it did work. And I got my health back, and it worked out well. And I started thinking, well, I have these contacts, and it seemed like it was something that was relatively easy for me to put together. I had worked for several years in the past in Mexico. I had these friendships and contacts and everything all
The universe
set to
kind
put
of set that
together.
up. Yeah.
Yes. I even had contacts with a few Oaxacan friends. I don't know if you're familiar with the history of the
Not
magic
enough.
mushroom.
Not enough as I should be for what I'm doing and talking about.
Well, okay, so back to the original story of the magic mushroom is that they've been used safely and effectively in multiple indigenous cultures throughout Central and South America. And originally we pretty much appropriated them and imported them.
We're really good at that. That's one thing.
Yes,
Really good
yes, we
at.
are.
Oh.
And the original indigenous person that introduced us to them was Maria Sabina, she was from Oaxaca. And so what we do at the retreat is we try to keep that same vein. So there are like several pillars to what we do and there's like a pillar of like sort of like an indigenous spirituality to it. We brought that in. Then we also have a set of like a physical therapy type of pillar that's brought in, where we do everything from if someone is dealing with I don't know if you're familiar with phantom limb pain.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. They have certain physical therapy exercises that are related to that. Or if you've heard of trauma release exercises.
No, that sounds specific.
That's a little bit more close between leaning in towards the mental health side.
Like somatic
kind
of. Yeah,
yes.
Got it.
And then there's just straight up yoga, which is just about like
you and I had talked about this last time where we're like, God damn it. We hate that we fucking love yoga. Like, we get it. Because so many people tell us to just do yoga. Ooh. But like, I cannot be okay without yoga now.
True. That's all that's the comes in. And then there's this straight up neuroscience side, all these things that are being brought together, all parts of this retreat. But so if but all this part we were talking back about the on the indigenous side,
right.
Everything about the retreat is like we are focused on respecting the original, like where the original roots of the part that these substances play in society, because by taking these substances out of their original intent and appropriating them and trying to make them into a party drug or a music festival thing, or like
Burning
we
Man.
pretty much have messed it up.
Yeah.
White people mess things up. We miss the point. I
feel like that should be the slug line of this podcast. Actually, it's like we don't know. We're absolutely sure we don't know everything, and we whites mess it up.
The point just goes straight over.
And like it, I sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I have terrible ADHD and I'm off my Adderall, as we know, because of the psilocybin I've been using. But it seems like, because that's the era I grew up in, is watching it as this sort of like party. Moms against drugs and drunk drive. Like it got very villainized, and I had to kind of do a little bit more like life to understand that there is this side of psilocybin and more of the plant medicines that does have these good intentions behind them in terms of like healing. And so I saw that existed, and I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to fear it so much, but I can't help that there's this huge sense, like I'm just terrified too. And I've gotten to a point where clearly I'm microdosing on my own. And I never in a million trillion years thought I would. I did 2 weeks ago, I did an episode about trying THC again. Never in a million years thought I would. But it's gotten to that point where I'm like, I'm trying the thing that I'm most terrified of. And I'm sure you're standing on the other side of it going like, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's so...
Oh, actually, it's just the opposite.
Oh, yeah?
There is definitely something to be afraid of. It is.
Go on. Tell me more.
I mean, powerful tools are powerful tools. I mean, you
There you
can't build a house without a power tool, really. I mean,
Right.
that's it.
Yeah.
And those things can cause a lot of damage, but they're also very powerful for building something there.
Right.
And I mean, the way I like to think about psilocybin is just like it's like the anabolic steroids for meditation. I mean, get jacked for meditating. And have you ever been told by a doctor to meditate for your pain?
Of course.
Yeah. And do you really feel like they've like rolled their eyes?
Yeah,
Like they're internally rolling their eyes as they tell you that?
Yeah.
Like you want to say, yeah, like if you were in this much pain, you'd be laughing. You think you could do that?
You think you can sit still, which hurts anyways to be sitting and focusing? Yeah, like fuck off. But
it's like you try that. Yeah, try it.
Let me know how it goes. But like that's what interested me about your story so much too, was like you are a spoonie. You have been through those depths of fucking hell, and you take the respect into the medicine. You acknowledge that you're like a crazy jungle white person that's come in and been like, I'm trying to break this to be something that should be understood, and I'm teaching you how to do it. I'm not just bringing you into this mansion and massaging you and like therapizing you and putting like headphones on, and you're giving the power to the person who really kind of needs it the most.
You put you back in the driver's seat. Like, but let me tell you a little bit about this experience, because after my first I think it was after my second or third experience with psilocybin, I gave meditation a try. Again. And it was a completely different animal. I closed my eyes. I did the breath counting, just like they say. And it was, I had never successfully meditated before in my life.
Wow.
And after a couple of breaths, sitting there, it was like being plugged into the matrix. I'm talking like going down a tunnel. All of the colors behind, like being your closed eyes, complete like body rush.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different experience. So this is what I mean by and I was not under the influence of any type of substances, because some doors, once they are open wide, they don't close completely. They're still open. So
you're saying that you were saying that you did that meditation not during a psilocybin. Right. Oh shit. I was like, well, yeah, you probably saw colors.
Of course.
But you're saying
I'm telling you that this is something that you can tap into afterwards.
So walk me through the actual experience. Like, what does the retreat look like? And I know we haven't really talked about like dosing size, and what I'm doing with this microdosing like self journey is nothing like what we're talking about here. So can you talk me through like, what does the actual experience of the retreat look like?
Okay. So, well, first, like maybe I should explain a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Is that, so people come, when it comes to chronic pain, they're coming to achieve a couple of different things. Like there are different doses for different
strokes.
Yeah, different strokes, different doses for different conditions.
Got it.
Like for migraine, usually the necessary dose is not necessarily that high. For cluster headaches, is not necessarily doesn't have to necessarily be that high. For some of the chronic pains, like conditions like CRPS or fibromyalgia, sometimes it can be significantly high to achieve a pain-free experience. So the goal with the retreat is to have someone have a very intense psychedelic experience while they're with us, while they're under supervision, so they can gain the confidence and get comfortable, learn how to meditate and be calm and direct that experience, so that when they are on their own, they can have that confidence, and they don't, so that they know that they can handle it. So that it's not, so they don't go home and think, oh, I'm scared of going up a little bit, so that there's no uncovered territory.
And because you're saying all of this, because it's not necessarily you go to the retreat and you're free of chronic pain and you never have to do anything ever again in your life.
Oh
It's
gosh, no.
yeah.
No. Every time you have a flare up, like the process of handling any type of chronic pain or is to handle it in pulses. So you do doses at like 5 or 7 day intervals to handle like flare ups and like in pulses. So no one is ever doing just one and done.
Right. You're never like you or open a new hole in your brain that's like, I ignore pain now and I can carry on life without feeling any longer.
Wouldn't it be nice?
I don't know. I think I got to be able to feel to be a creative, but I would like to lessen it. I'll tell you that one. I would. There's a part of me that's like, okay, I'm kind of over this shit. But that's good. That's a
well, what about feeling different things? Something different.
Yeah,
like
something different.
Something different. Open up a different door. Like a different door.
Literally any other door. I will take a fucking keyhole to peep through. Like just something different.
Because there are many things. I mean, medicine doesn't really understand 100% how psychedelics work on chronic pain. Whether we're talking about ketamine or you're talking about psilocybin, they don't understand it 100%. There are theories about whether it's like changes in blood flow in the brain itself. I mean, that would apply mostly to like the idea of like cluster headaches or migraine, or whether it's related just to changes in neuroplasticity. Because you mentioned something about you were reading a book about
The Way Out is what I'm currently reading, and it's
I'm sure they talk about
pain.
Sensitize how your central nervous system gets sensitized to certain types of pain.
Basically, like when the pain happened, your brain turned on the receptors of like pain, and it never turned off. And their idea of pain reprocessing therapy is just learning how to turn that off. It's not to say it won't ever go back on again, but you learn how to say like, okay, body, thank you. And it's supposed to all be done through, I guess, talk the way. I don't know. I'm only 2 chapters in, so I can't say much about it.
Well, the idea that the psychedelics is just to sort of lubricate that process through make it easier, like the neuroplasticity, just make things a little bit more flexible, like make your whole worldview. And by worldview, I mean like as in how you interact with your nervous system, how your nervous and how your nervous system interacts with the outside world, just makes it a little bit more flexible.
Right. And I think that that's super important to understand, because spoonies, we search so long for a specific answer to a specific thing, and then we find it, and we're never treating the brain and body as a whole together. It's so ignored. And like we kind of talked a little bit about that off camera, as I was like, I'm really trying to understand too about like, you are able to speak to how psilocybin affects the brain and the functions of how then that interacts with the pain you experience.
Yes, like it's if you're in this constant state of alarm, or you're like your brain is constantly getting signals from the outside world, and how it interprets it can be flexible. Right now, you're this constant state of rigidity. When you take the psychedelics, can make that a little bit more flexible.
Yeah. And that's the idea. This book's talking about neuroplastic pain, is that we think of chronic pain as this way for life until something dramatic happens, whether it be surgery, which ends up being actually pretty traumatic to the body, or psychedelic experience or whatever. And then something big is supposed to happen and change it forever. But the reality is that the brain has to be constantly changing and understanding signals different.
Right. And that's why we talk about the pulses. Like they take it at 5-day intervals. So you pulse, you take multiple doses and pulse with the psychedelics. So you multiple doses. And at the retreat, you just learn how. So we give you the tools to learn how to handle it, and you mean for yourself.
Right. So when I show up, am I like put in a white robe and like dumped into a vat of kale and then like massaged for 6 hours, or like how does it look? What can someone expect?
There's a lot of talking, a lot of preparation. We're mainly really concerned about your ability to handle something that is this disruptive in your day-to-day life in the future. So we talk a lot about how to mainly because something like this in a let's say how it's been used in a indigenous culture, it has a place in that society. It has a ritual, it has and that's how it is safely used in that society,
right?
Because there's a ritual involved, it has a culture around it. So at the retreat, we talk about a place, you have to create a container for it, as in you have a specific ritual. And I'm not talking about necessarily a spiritual ritual. At the retreat, yes, it has a spiritual ritual to it, which I'm not necessarily a spiritual person, but at the retreat, it does have that, it's in that context. And that doesn't mean that everyone going to the retreat is expected to adopt a Mesoamerican spiritual practice after that point, but it's presented as in, this is how it's done under these circumstances, and under these circumstances, everyone's expected to respect it under those in that presentation, because that is how it is under those circumstances. But we talk a lot about how, because it is a very destabilizing type of substance, you have to make a container for it, as in you make a ritual, as in like how can I explain this to somebody who doesn't, you are making your thoughts and your sense of self very liquid, and liquid doesn't have a structure. So you have to create a structure outside, protect yourself, don't expose yourself to outside influences for a day. So that's one reason why I'm saying, like, taking this and going out into a music festival is not really a good idea.
No.
So my personal ritual is I have a day that I don't allow any sort of outside contact. I close myself in my room. I have my VR headset. I use VR when I do this, and I don't allow outside contact. And it's a very protective type of container while I'm engaging with these substances that could be very destabilizing to myself. Those are the kinds of talks that we have. It's mainly about how to safely use things, and incorporate them in your lifestyle.
Right. And you guys have, again, like, you provide these sort of, I keep coming back to the word facilitators, but that's because I went to a guided meditation on the beach last night. That was like, facilitator. I am facilitating this.
We usually we refer to them as guides.
Guides. There you go. And
they specialize in different things. We do have the one from Oaxaca who specializes more in like she's that side, the more of that's sort of the spirituality side. We do have the yoga instructor that is more on the like the physical side, and then there's me that's more on this, like, the scientific, the health, the pain management side.
Right. And do you guys have like a medic there? Because I've seen what 9 Perfect Strangers did was, like, one person played both roles, and I was like, I feel like that's not a real thing.
Well, sometimes we do. It depends on the specific needs of the visitors. Because it depends on who is there. We do not really use substances that have like any sort of like a physical danger to them. We do sometimes have visitors that have health delicate health situations.
Right.
The psilocybin is known to be helpful in palliative care. So
what was that word you used?
Palliative care, end of life care.
I see.
Yes.
Okay, we've talked about that. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like that's
so sometimes people visit that have needs that we can't necessarily
That's kind of
But
what's beautiful though about what you're doing is like it is flexible to a degree of like we're not shutting the door to anybody necessarily that is in pain that would like to be out of pain. Is that an accurate statement?
right. I think that's a pretty accurate statement.
You
And
don't have any like Burning Man people that are like, I want to come, and you have to be like, this is a chronic pain thing, or do people?
I think that they sort of self-sort.
Hmm.
They self-sort themselves out. It seems like they might look at the website and say, "Oh, this might be a
Ah.
buzzkill."
This ain't my style. I'm not trying to hang out with a girl who's in constant
And I
physical
do
pain.
to be honest, like it is a bit of a buzzkill.
Mm.
If that is what's, I mean,
Yeah.
what you're looking for, it is a bit of a buzzkill.
Yeah. Stay in the States. You can find plenty of those in the States.
You really
Yeah.
can.
And how many people generally is it, or is it different every time?
It is different every time.
Yeah.
It is a pretty small group. We don't go more than 3 people per guide.
Wow. That's great. That
So,
actually makes me feel really good. It feels
mhm.
like I would get a lot of attention, which I need.
You do get a lot of attention, and we stick strictly to psilocybin. We don't
Right.
do ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca, no, it's different. And I think that that's what I was bombarded with. And I could not find a single fucking one that talked about pain with ayahuasca. It was all trauma, PTSD, which is all very important to have for people. And I know people we've talked about that it's like they went to Peru for 2 weeks and they're completely different people. And I'm so happy for them. I was just pissed I couldn't literally find fucking anything that had to do with chronic pain. And yet I'm being told and marketed that there are plant-based medicines for chronic pain, like, whether it be THC or ketamine or, I mean, that's a chemical, but whatever,
Yeah.
or psilocybin. It's being told to me that it's used for pain. And then there was no information anywhere about it. And then I found you and here you are. Now we're friends. So I am
Yeah.
grateful, but I'm pissed. It took me to finding a specific place in my own research to get here.
Well, yeah, I got really lucky specifically for myself that that my journey did turn out to be as smooth as it did.
Yeah, seriously.
Because I would say if my worst trip was my first,
Ooh, go on.
I don't think that I would have made it through
Yeah.
the full, like, so I got a little bit lucky that, because I got lucky that things went smooth for me. And
Yeah.
even though I sort of raw dogged it and went it like all on my own.
Wow. Yeah.
I got lucky that it was a roll of the dice. I got to now with all of my experience so far,
Yeah.
I know that it was a roll of the dice and I got lucky.
So you're like, let me help you not do what I did.
Yes, to a degree, yes.
To a degree, but like come do what I did, but just in
and if I had listened to, like, I do have a very aggressively skeptical mind.
Yeah.
And if I had listened to some of the people with their less than scientific opinions, because there are a lot of less than scientific opinions in the psychedelic space that it doesn't necessarily apply to pain medicine at all. I would have been in the woods.
Right. You got
it would
lucky.
not have worked well.
Yeah. And what you're doing now, you're seeing what with people who come and then leave?
Well, we're not the only organization doing this.
Ooh.
Like there are plenty of patient groups, especially in the cluster headache group, like cluster headache space, that they are organizations that are doing this, that are, just patient organizations that are supporting each other and working through this. But mostly it's very stratified, as in like there are people that are working by themselves. Now, in a way, the way I got started doing what I'm doing was I wanted to give back to the people in the organization that had helped me out, because I had reached out to individuals in the cluster headache community about, they helped me out with information that helped me with my headache. And so how can I support?
Yeah.
And so it started out with supporting people with advice on growing mushrooms, advice on supporting them through their experiences with actually tripping.
Yeah.
And it was the most frustrating experience possible because you can't be there.
Right.
And it felt like this whole mother bird experience of like, okay, now fly.
Kick you out of the nest.
and you can't, or like, now swim, now what?
Yeah.
Like, and it was like very, very stressful for me.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't, I couldn't handle it. So it's okay. So what do I have to do to make this more hands-on? Because without getting into too much trouble with the law. Like, exactly, because there's that whole other thing.
Yeah.
And
it's all still kind of illegal where we live.
Right. So in that case, that's very like, it's a very well-known technique and process that is has very good results and very solid results on that side. Now on the other side, there's a neurologist with Yale right now that is doing some studies involving psilocybin and migraine. Which migraine is a much more common condition than cluster headache. I mean, it's very, very widespread.
Yeah.
And I just went to a medical conference, like, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before. And I mean, the results that she's having, I mean, are very, very promising. And this is in like a very less than ideal.
Yeah.
I say less than ideal conditions is in like, they take people and put them in a highly medicalized situation.
Yeah.
Put them in with an IV in their arm. It was hilarious watching the presentation. She's giving a very, very serious presentation and listing the possible side effects. One of them was anxiety, as in like, yes, I'm surprised the person felt anxiety.
And when you poke and prod them like a lab rat.
Poke and prod them and then give them psychedelics.
Yeah. I imagine that's not the most comfortable setting.
Yes. And they're like decreasing the duration and the intensity of these migraine attacks, like in some cases, like almost like about half. And these are like significant numbers. And it makes me wonder, like, when you combine this with the effects of like in meditation or like under being good conditions, what could the actual effects be?
Right. And that's what you're doing. Yeah.
In long term. Yes.
So we kind of briefly touched on it when you're talking about, like, it's hard to really say specifically like dose wise what number works for what people, but what is different from what I'm doing with these literal microdose experience, we're coming to, and I think what a common phrase people know, or at least what I was able to find on YouTube, is like a hero dose. And a hero dose is 5 grams.
A hero dose is 5 grams.
Yes.
That whole term hero dose was coined by Terence McKenna, right? It's like he had a big ego. Like they say like that the psychedelics is supposed to cut down your ego, but then he called it the hero dose. Like, that's
such a white dude experience. He's like, I can save all of you if you do this hero dose.
Yes. That we do stick around a hero dose at that 5 gram dose at the retreat.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be like you're supposed to need an environment that you're talking about when you're doing this kind of dose, and you're teaching people to then be able to recreate that environment at home to keep like sort of maintenance and upkeep. And do you ever find that people need to come back more than once, or like are constantly in touch with you? Like, is there a community?
Oh yeah, there's a community.
Part of it?
we keep in touch. We've been Zoom meetings, emails, back and forth.
Yeah, you've been emailing me. It's great. It's like I feel like I have a professional psychedelic doctor, but I know you don't want me to say that right at my fingertips.
That is my long-term goals, because this retreat is it's a new project. It's got started really just right before the pandemic, so we've been sort of like just patching things together since getting something like that started right before a pandemic is rough.
Yeah
it was rough. So that is sort of the goal, to put together a community of people, not just me who is supporting people, but multiple people supporting each other.
Right. Because I think my biggest fear is that I go and a new hole rips open in my brain where I'm not the same person anymore, and I'm speaking in tongues, and I have to have some sort of like psychosis medical intake emergent. Like, there's all these negative intrusive thoughts of just like what I've seen in media, or what you of course hear about, which is like the terrifying experiences from people. You never get to really, it's not interesting to hear the really positive healing experiences from people. And so I guess, like, what can you say to maybe people who are listening who are like, I don't know anything about psychedelics, which is me. I've never experienced them in a party, traditional American setting, but I'm super fucking interested because I'm hearing about it.
I would say, think about something that you know really well, and then think about how that was portrayed in media, and try and draw some, like, if there's something that you're very familiar with.
I immediately went to threesomes. I was like, I know how threesomes really are versus how they've been portrayed in media. And it's never accurate. And like, it can be very maintained. Like there's so much more to it. And it's such a more,
it's like I wonder how real doctors, when they watch Grey's Anatomy, how they feel.
Right. They're just like, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
A pilot watching a movie with like pilots flying planes. It's never. So, and I guess it gets even more difficult when you're talking about something that's really more niche.
And personal.
And less people understand. And and then even if you're trying to get some firsthand knowledge about this, it gets even harder, because so when I started doing this, my husband was not into it. He was not going to try it. He never did any type of substance before in his life. He was not. And I take that back. He had tried pot, hated it.
There you go.
And he was not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then, what got him? He got so annoyed by asking me about what it was like and getting this answer of, I can't explain it.
You just gotta know.
I can't explain it. I can't. No, words can't explain it. Can't put it in words. Sorry. No. And then what threw him over the edge was when another friend then tried it and gave him that same answer. And then he was like, God damn it.
I don't want to feel left out anymore.
Because he got done getting that same answer. Because so then you're talking about something that can't be put into words. So then I'd say, like, okay, so how many of these people do you know that have been tossed into a psychosis?
None. Personally.
Then I would like, okay, so rewind, because I don't want to invalidate the experience of people who have been tossed into psychosis, because they do exist.
Yes, I know people
do
that
exist
into very close to me in psychosis, but it did not come from a psilocybin experience.
so I don't want to invalidate their experience, because it does happen, and 1% of the entire population is affected by schizophrenia. And schizophrenia can be triggered by I say psychosis in general can be triggered by an experience. And sometimes that experience could be anything from a traumatic experience. It could be the experience of being taken.
Right.
Yeah, emotional. It could be something like a stressful experience, like going to
Right.
grad school. It could
Yeah.
be something
Lack of
like
sleep,
that.
trauma, childhood trauma, like anything.
It could be a substance. It
And
could
it could be a substance.
and it could be a substance. So usually those kinds of schizophrenia, those mental illnesses, they will show up before a certain age.
Right.
And so I don't want to invalidate those experiences.
Sure.
But
sure.
if someone has experienced whisperings
Right.
of those kinds of things, then that's something, worth talking about.
Right.
But if it hasn't shown up,
Right.
or you haven't had those kinds of whisperings,
Right.
or like a felt of you haven't felt a little bit of a break from reality before a certain, by a certain time, the chances of you actually having that is not. Now, I'm not going to lie to you that, yes, having a psilocybin experience or LSD experience can be a lot like psychosis. It's a temporary psychosis.
It can be uncomfortable if it's not.
Oh, and it can also be extremely pleasurable.
Right.
It's great being mad as a hatter. It's great. it's lovely.
That's why people love being in mania too.
It's great.
A great thing. Yeah.
The scary part is like, oh, is this forever? But if you can have that confidence of knowing that, oh, this has a time limit, and
it's a couple hours, right? 7 to 10 hours.
And just really trust and let go,
right?
And trust in the process, then it can be extremely freeing. And one of the original ideas for a medical use for LSD was using it to study the state of psychosis. That's how close the
experience can be.
The experience is, yeah.
And I think I had told you this before when we had talked, that my dad, he was part of the Kenkezi further bus. At some point he was on it. He then took that. He was at Woodstock. He took all these experiences and was like, well, if I'm going to have to be in the business medical world, then I want to be able to be in that part of it. And so his job through college was to take people that were coming in having bad tripping experiences, and they would be like, where's Mike? Put him in Mike's room. And then my dad would like help guide them back to a safe place and then follow up and make sure that there wasn't like these after effects and stuff. So my family comes from people that love psychedelics, love. And for some reason I got the anxiety gene, the panic disorder gene, the depression gene. And I guess that I fear that could interrupt my really, really desperately open and willing side, which is like, I want to heal in a way of understanding how to heal my chronic pain or manage whatever words you want to use. But I'm fearful that there's this other part of my personality and chemical makeup, I guess, that could alter my experience. That's more of a specific me question. But I think
is a very specific you question. I would say it's like with that heroic dose, you're not in the driver's seat that much. I think you're overestimating the amount of control. That's
actually really good. I need someone to just go, oh, control. You don't have that anymore.
Okay, you have a certain amount of control, and that's the control. We do teach you a certain amount of control at the retreat. In that retreat, you have the control. The control that we try to focus on is you have a skip button control.
Ooh, I like that.
That is like the skip button is when you feel uncomfortable or something is unpleasant. We teach these skills where you pretty much just sort of yeet yourself out of.
That you said that you can yeet through the experience
you yeet yourself out of that experience.
Yes,
so you pretty much stand up, shake it off, and then you're in a different, because at 5 grams of mushrooms you have the attention span of a gnat,
right?
But the absolute fixation. So if you are fixated on something and getting uncomfortable, you could be stuck there. You could be stuck there. But what the skill that we talk about is like, okay, you realize if you feel less than fantastic, you have to have that little bit of presence of mind to yeet yourself out of it.
And I also had this idea of what the experience would be like, and then talking to you the first time, I was like, oh wait, I can like bring Jared with, like, Jared can come, and he doesn't necessarily mean he's like hand holding me through the experience, because I do think you should be going through like a journey. I'm very codependent when it comes to my uncomfortabilities, and so I lean on him a lot to get me through a flare up or get me through, and I think I need to be have some agency with this. I feel like, when we talked about this prior to recording, is that people in chronic pain, we get pushed aside, we get discriminated against, we get
lied to.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's okay to lie to us because we're never going to be okay anyway.
Right.
And that's like,
right. And so it's not my fault that I've developed this, like, I need him as a teddy bear, but you were like, yeah, why doesn't he come? And I was like, oh, wait, is that allowed? And you were like, yeah, most people do kind of come with this, either like a friend or a couple or whatever, because I do also think that, there is that safety net, I guess, of being in an environment you're not used to, or like, out of the country or whatever, but there is something that would be of grounding material in having someone there.
But I want to make sure that I answered your question correctly. Yes, like what it's like. Okay, so what it's like is there's a lot of talking and like group discussions. That's like, so we have like dinners together, and it is a very short retreat. So it's like there's a dinner, and then the next morning is when there's that whole session, and that runs most of the day. Then there's like a dinner all together.
And is everyone back? Is everyone back from their trip by dinner time?
Yes. Okay. Because we start early. We start early in the morning.
Okay.
And then that next day there is a mushroom growing class, so that we set them up to be independent once they get home.
Right. And that, I feel like, is important.
Yeah, because
it's so regulated where we live. And I think that's, I told you, ever since I've been talking about psilocybin at all, whether it be in a larger microdose capacity, I get so many questions, and I'm like, I don't know, because I've never been through, I've never gone this far to it. And I think that education part of it is so important to know and be able to talk about it, and have, if there's any way to impact, and it's to share and to have someone understand the experience themselves. I think the growing part of that is just as important, because I never fucking thought about growing mushrooms. I don't even know. I love mushrooms.
It's super easy, and the
I grew a lion's mane mushroom once in my kitchen.
That's impressive.
It was a big white thing.
That's impressive.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Yeah.
And so where, maybe you can or can't answer this, but like, what does that look like? How do we teach people to grow mushrooms for themselves for psychedelic?
Well, the tutorial is all on our website. Like, it's all free on the website. So
great.
If someone even doesn't want to go to the retreat, and they're like really want to like start doing that, they could just go to the tutorial and go start from there.
Got it. But then I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do once I grew them. I'd be like, yeah, but now I want to go with Jessica and be in Mexico, and I want to take these. I don't want to chance it on my own.
Teach their own, but we're here to help.
Yeah. So, okay. I know we've already been talking for more than an hour, which, like, of course, I told you I could talk about this kind of stuff forever. How can someone who's interested in this find what you're doing, what you're talking about? What would you like the listeners to know just about the world of what you do?
Oh, well, just go to the website. You can check it out. And yeah, that's a good place to start. I would just say, just go to the website. And
you're very like helpful. I say that because I'm surprised, because the world of chronic pain has been so fucking unhelpful, but like, you immediately were like, what questions can I answer? Like, let me give you very thorough responses. Like, it's very individualized, and you made me feel like, oh my God, okay, I could do this. And that's important
What's the alternative to that one?
Like, I don't know, copy and paste a Q&A answer section of I don't know.
It's all a big scheme to harvest kidneys.
Well, I did just finish watching Squid Games on Netflix this weekend, so like my mind is like, maybe, I
don't know. No, those Koreans, they are really good at horror, aren't they?
I'm not
scariest
surprised
movies
at
ever.
all. It's like number one most watched Netflix show, I think they were saying, and I'm not surprised at all. But it's not. I don't know what 9 Perfect Strangers numbers are doing, but I will say I've heard a lot of interest and people talk about it, and I think if we can shift the conversation, I wish there was more materials out there to watch and learn, and I think the first thing that I can do to be helpful is to go do it myself. So the goal is to be a part of a retreat, hopefully in the top of the year, and maybe we can come back and do another episode with you about how it all went.
Maybe we could.
Good. Do the 5-star Yelp review and all that jazz together.
We're on Google, not Yelp. Yelpers are the worst.
Yelp is all bot. That's a scheme. You want to talk about schemes? That's a scheme.
It is.
Well, Jessica, I feel like we talked a lot.
This has been fun.
But like, I still want to talk more about it. So I really do think we should do another episode, this post experience. And
it'll be fun.
If people want to find you in the retreat, I'm going to link that below with the Eleusinia.
Eleusinia.
See, I also
it's a tough one.
I just saw the Cirque du Soleil illusion, so now my words are complicated. But you're also on Instagram and TikTok, so we're gonna link that below if people have more questions. You're super helpful. Confidants, thanks so much for joining us this week. You know where to rate this 5 stars. Speaking of rating Googles and Yelps, if it's not gonna be 5 stars, please don't rate it at all because I am sensitive. Speaking of sensitive, the merch is online, kelseydarragh.com and on Fat Catalog. And we will see you next time. Bye.